Welcome to Digitally Creative. I'm your host, Vincent Ferrari, and joining me this week is no one. Yeah, it's a holiday weekend, and just like I think it was Easter weekend. Yeah, it was Easter weekend. Sometimes it's hard to get people wrangled together enough to get on the show, and I'm okay with that because I'm kind of digging being able to just have a conversation with you guys. I know that's not what you pay for, and I'm sorry, but sometimes I just can't get a guest. So rather than give you no show, give you just me, which I guess for some of you might actually be better than no show, right? Please, please tell me that's the case. I was thinking about today. Um, yeah, as I've been very open about, the job situation's not been great. In fact, today I just found out that I did lose the one I thought I had because an internal applicant at the company applied for the same position. And once I heard an internal applicant applied, I knew I was toast. And turns out I am. So I didn't get that position. Such is life. I have still kept up with the consulting. I'm still keeping up with the podcast. I am still keeping up with my woodworking and jewelry making business. I am doing what I can. And with the help of you people and everyone else, it's not as bad as it could be. It would be a lot worse if I didn't have the people in my corner that I have. So thank you. But I'm not here to talk about that. We've talked about that to death. But it got me thinking, like, how do you manage to keep going when it's starting to feel a little bit hopeless, right? What motivates you to keep pushing ahead when it doesn't feel like you're gonna get there no matter what you do, right? And I've had those moments in my life. I mean, I've talked very publicly about my fight with cancer and how I beat it because that's what you do when you have cancer. You either beat it or it beats you. And I'm one of the lucky ones that beat it. And I'm very happy about that. Believe me. But what do you do? Like, how do you keep motivated to keep fighting when it doesn't feel like you're making any progress? And I thought about it and I thought about my life and the people I've known in my life and the people who were the biggest influences on my life. And it got me thinking about my dad. Now, I've talked about my dad a few times, but for those of you that don't know, my dad passed October 5th of 2013, which I believe is 1 year to the date of Steve Jobs passing. Fun fact. I mean, it's not a fun fact to talk about someone's death, but you understand what I mean. But I was thinking about my dad's life because my dad always had a pretty good work ethic. I mean, he wasn't one of those workaholic types. He was a blue collar guy, you know, big Brooklyn born Italian dude. And, one of the everybody used to call him the mayor of the neighborhood. I mean, if you talk to any of my friends, any of my friends that I grew up with, they would tell you very much that Carmine was the mayor of the neighborhood. No matter what neighborhood it was, we could move neighborhoods and he'd still be the mayor of the neighborhood. Everybody knew Carmine. Going to the store, everybody knew Carmine. You go into a store six neighborhoods over, they knew Carmine. Somehow or another, everyone knew my dad. But my dad was a blue collar dude. And when I was born, he worked, let's see, he started out doing display carpentry. And for those of you not in the business, display carpentry, if you go to the big trade shows, Consumer Electronics Show, Comdex at the time was probably bigger, any number of different trade shows, those giant booths, not the modular carpeted wall things with one little sign that has the company name on it that we see at a lot of trade shows now. I'm talking massive, multi-hundred, multi-thousand square foot booths with massive swoopy displays and stairs and meeting rooms. And that was the kind of stuff my dad did for a living. He was very good at it. I mean, he did finished carpentry for a while, but most of his career as a carpenter was done doing display carpentry. And he was just really, really good at it. And if you're not familiar with the way that business works, it's super cyclical because it relies on trade shows. And if there are no trade shows, there are no clients coming into the companies to get their displays made, there is no work. And a lot of people in my dad's business, they would work on and off all year long. Most of them rarely worked more than 6 months out of the year. In fact, my dad, the more I think about it, my dad was out of work more than he was working. So my dad always had side jobs. He installed aluminum siding. You had the annoying guys that came to your door with the clipboard in the 70s and the 80s to sell you the siding. Well, my dad was one of the guys on the crew installing it. He installed storm doors and security doors, and wherever he could, he was making whatever money he could using the skills that he had to try to make ends meet and support his family. He did that when that business basically fell apart and he couldn't work anymore. He took a night shift job at Wallbaum's. Wallbaum's, if you live in the New York area, you know what Wallbaum's is. But if you never lived in the New York area, think A&P, Pathmark, that kind of vibe. In fact, it was actually ended up Wallbaum's got swallowed up by A&P and then Pathmark, and they all merged, and then they all went out of business. Goes to show, big doesn't always mean safe, right? And he would work nights. My mom wasn't working. She was taking care of me. I was too young to leave alone, and my parents didn't have money for daycare. So, regardless of what my dad thought he wanted to do with his life, the imperative came to be paying the rent and supporting his family. And no matter what happened, no matter what happened, my dad always paid the rent. I don't know how he did it. To this day, I don't know how they did it. I don't know how my parents, I was born in 1976. My sister was born in 1980. My mom didn't work in any measurable way until the mid 80s. When we were old enough to take care of ourselves, she went to doing home typing, which basically they would give you a mailing list of names, and you would make envelopes, and you would do on letterhead, you would type the addresses onto these standardized printed letterheads. And my mom would do that, and be paid by the piece. And I remember once I learned how to type, guess who was doing it with her? So my mom would do all these, and when my mom wanted to take a break, I would fill in and keep it going. This was my family. Everybody pitched in, everybody chipped in. My dad did eventually find much more stable work as a carpenter, but stable work as a carpenter is a very relative term, because stable work as a carpenter just meant that 6 months out of the year he was working, 8 if he was lucky, but most of the time 6, sometimes less, sometimes work a month, off 2 months. I mean, it's just the way it was. But my dad never stopped working. And when he wasn't working officially, he was doing what we called side jobs, what everyone calls a side hustle now. They think they created the term, but my dad was doing side jobs in the early 80s. He was, I guess, moonlighting, whatever the hell you want to call it, whatever cool term, you want to come up with. My dad was doing it before everybody else. And I was thinking about that today, and I'm like, all the stuff that I'm doing, all the stuff that I'm doing, trying to keep my head above water right now, I'm trying to figure, like, where does that come from? And it came from my dad, because I always saw my dad doing all the things he had to do to keep himself above water and keep his family above water and keep us, me, my sister, my mother, fed. He never stopped. He never stopped. And I guess, I always ask people when they come on the show what their influences were in their early career, particularly with artistic people, right? I always like to know where they got started. And, if you listen to Making Problems to Solve with Dave Bauer, he often does the same thing. He always asks, what was your family life like? Because family life is family life is a big deal, right? Family life is a big deal. You don't realize how much of an influence your family is until one day, those progressive commercials where you're becoming your parents are pretty prescient, because you don't realize you're doing it. And then one day it hits you, oh my God, I'm becoming my parents. And don't get me wrong, that's not always a good thing. Some people had horrible parents, had terrible childhoods. I was lucky enough I didn't. We didn't have a ton of money. We had just enough to survive. My parents gave me everything they were able to give me. And as a kid, I would see what my friends had, and I was often jealous. But as an adult, I'm like, I can't believe I had what I had. And you don't understand it in the moment, but you understand it later on. And I've been thinking about all this stuff a lot lately. And am I happy that I'm in the situation I'm in? Not particularly. My savings is pretty much that close to being gone. It will be gone very soon. I will have no savings anymore. Um, I don't have a steady I don't have a steady W-2 job. And unfortunately, the instability is problematic when I can't get backstopped by my savings now. So I'm doing the best I can, right? But I don't feel hopeless. I just feel like, okay, I just have to keep working and just trust that the process is going to sort itself out. And it makes me happy. It makes me happy to see that one of the best things about my dad, and one of his best features, and one of the most important things that I got from him was, his work ethic and his just keep going, keep going, keep going. We always talk about taking a kick and keeping moving. And it's not easy to do, right? We know it's not easy to do. We talk about it like it's easy to do, like, oh, just keep going. You just keep going. But how do you keep going when it feels like, there's a brick wall in front of you? Like, what do you do? Do you could sit there and punch at the brick wall and punch at the brick wall and punch at the brick wall until you get through it. Or you could be intimidated by the brick wall and just stand there, right? And call it the end. But people with a good work ethic, you're always trying to get to the other side of that brick wall. My dad was always trying to get to the other side of that brick wall. There was no brick wall that he didn't have a sledgehammer heavy enough to punch through. And like I said, I started realizing that, oh, wow, this is what I got from my dad. We don't always appreciate what we get from our parents. We don't always appreciate all the things that they've ingrained in us, work ethic, the importance of family, the importance of self-care, whatever it is. We don't always think about it until something reminds us, like, oh yeah, remember when your dad did this? Today I was today I was at Home Depot picking up some stuff for Kathy's house because we're getting ready for a Memorial Day barbecue. As you hear this, Memorial Day is already over. But we're getting ready for Memorial Day barbecue, and I was picking stuff up, and I'm walking around the garden center at Home Depot to get a couple extra plants for their garden. And I'm walking there, and I remembered being a little kid, my dad taking me to the nursery and, looking at the plants and always trying to pick out the nicest looking ones, the ones that look the healthiest, that they would be the strongest ones. Those are the ones you got to get in the ground. And, then going over to the lumber section and getting a piece of lattice that I needed to cut up in my shop to fix the deck in the backyard. And I'm doing all this stuff and I'm not even thinking about it, right? But then I get in the car and I'm driving and it's like, oh wow, I'm having that moment of connection to my dad again. And there are so many things that I've done. Like I said, my dad died in 2013, so a lot of what my life is today, it wasn't when my dad died. It's been 10 years. Oh wow. Yeah, it's been 10 years since my dad died. My dad never got to see me as a woodworker. He never got to see me as a maker. He never got to see me as an artist. He never got to see me, you know, really take care of a house. He never got to see me really take care of someone else's house or to be the guy that does the things to help people out. He never got to see any of that. And it makes me sad that he never got to see me do that because I feel like I'm finally living up to what he wanted me to be. I don't know if it's the same for women. I'm not a woman, so I don't know. But I know that for guys, and I think all the guys in the audience, I think you all can relate to this. Your father wants you to be a certain thing. And even if you don't understand it at the time, one day you do kind of understand what your dad wanted you to be. And when it hits you that you're becoming finally, whenever it happens, you're finally becoming what your dad wanted you to become, it's it's kind of wild. It's kind of wild. I like to think that I've done him proud in a lot of ways. I'm uh, working with wood. I'm working with my hands. I'm not just sitting on my ass in front of a computer. I mean, granted, whatever career I end up with after this break of unemployment, I probably will be sitting on my ass with a computer, but the desire to be an artist or a maker or a creative person is never going away. The skilled labor that I've learned over the last 6 years as a maker, that's not going away. It's going to stick around. It's probably going to be a permanent feature of my life. And I I had that moment today where I was like, if my dad could see me now, he'd be so proud of what I've done and where I am, what I've gotten through. You know, it's I think that's what made my dad's death hard on me. Not the fact that he died, because I mean it's hard to watch your a parent die. I'm not saying it's easy, right? But my dad just kind of gave up at the end. Like, he didn't want to fight anymore. He was tired from fighting. He'd been fighting, getting progressively unhealthier last 4 years of his life, and just little by little he was just dying, perpetually. It was almost a relief when he died, as horrible as that is to say, because when he finally passed, I was like, all right, he doesn't have to fight anymore. And obviously we're Italian. My mom is German, but for the most part, I was raised as an Italian guy. I was raised in Brooklyn. I was raised Catholic. So, when somebody dies, Catholics, you don't believe it's the end. You just believe it's like on to a better place now, right? And you didn't have to fight anymore. But I think the hardest part of it was watching him give up, because it was the first time, it really was the first time that I could ever remember in my entire life watching my father give up. Because that's what he did. He was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And he just passed away. He checked into the hospital for the last time about 2 months before he died, and he never checked out. And the next time I heard anything about my dad at all, it was that he had passed away. He didn't want visitors. He wasn't even, by the time he went into the hospital the last time, he wouldn't have even known you were there anyway. He was unaware of everything. It was basically just mechanical assistance to keep him alive at that point. But all that to say that my dad's constant desire to push forward and to keep going, keep going, keep going, and his constant ability to do it no matter what he was staring down, made the way he died a big shock to me. And I think that's the part of his death that still to this day doesn't sit right with me, because I wouldn't expect that from my dad. When I had cancer, I remember telling my ex-wife, I said, I'm not going to be my father. Whatever it takes, I'm not going to be my father. I'm going to fight till the bitter end, till I have no energy left in me to fight anymore. That was my goal. I don't care if chemo, radiation, surgery, chemo and radiation again. I didn't care. I was not going to do what my dad did. I was not going to give up. I was not going to stop fighting. Maybe that was another lesson that I had to learn, and maybe it was another thing that I took away from my dad, even though I was doing the opposite of what he had done in that situation. Maybe that was what I needed to do in that moment. I needed to fight. I needed to fight like I'd never fought before. And maybe I needed to see him, I hate to say it, but maybe I needed to see him die to know that that's not what I wanted to do, that I didn't want to give up and die. Maybe that was my dad's ultimate lesson to me, right? Was to put your foot on the goddamn accelerator and don't stop no matter what gets in front of you. It's a hell of a good piece of advice. And it's one that, I it's been hard to keep that at the front of mind lately, because it's there's a lot going on. I mentioned it briefly in past episodes. I'm probably going to lose my shop soon. That's just the way it is. I'm probably going to lose my shop soon. The building's for sale. God knows how long it's going to be for sale. Hopefully, they're only selling part of the building and they can move me to another part of it. That's what I'm hoping for, but I have no right to hope that. I'm not paying rent for the building I'm in. So they'll just say, you got to leave. Thank God for Kathy and her cousin Debbie, because they've already said that we'll figure it out. We'll get every single tool into the basement if we need to of their house, so that I don't have to give up my shop, so I don't have to put this business away and never think about it again. It's just I have to do it, right? I have to do it. Even even today, even today, when I got the notice, when I got the phone call from HR at that company that I didn't get the position, I was like, yeah, I kind of expected it. I should have been devastated. I should be looking around this apartment going, I'm going to lose all this, right? No. No. Because you know what? If I do, if this all comes to an end and I have to leave this apartment that I love so much, if it all comes to an end, it ain't going to be because I gave up. It ain't going to be because I gave up. That's the best I can do, and that's all I can do. And again, another lesson I learned from my dad. So I've spent a lot of time this episode talking about my dad and the things I learned from my dad. And I guess the takeaway for me is to maybe give yourself a little time at some point and just think about what your parents, what your family, what your main influences did for you as far as how they influenced who you are and what you've become. And try to internalize that as much as you can. Think about the things you've been through and how you've reacted, even if you've reacted in the opposite way. Influences don't have to be direct action. I did it the way they did it. They could be, I watched them do it wrong and then I did it right. Could very well be that. Even if it's that, have that have that conversation with yourself. Assess where you are in your life, assess where you want to be in your life. Make sure you're going down the right road. Like I said, keep your foot on the goddamn accelerator and don't take it up no matter what gets in front of you. That's what I'm doing, or at least that's what I'm trying to do. And every once in a while, you're going to hit the rut. Every once in a while, you're going to get a flat tire. That doesn't mean you're done. Put the spare on, get back in the car, keep driving. That's all you can do. And take a minute to thank the people that support this podcast financially, because without them, I probably would be homeless already. And those people include Matthew Serio from Artigiano Serio, Big Al Schultz of New York Woodworks, Tori Decker from Tori Did It, Ed Swanson from Ed's Clocks and More, Jake Drews of Make with Jake, Megan Chris from Onyx Designs Woodwork, Christian Neary of Warren Works, Ken Madden from Mad K Studios, Jeff Stein, aka A Weird Guy, Kim and Garrett from Kim and Garrett Make It, Rory Langefeld of RLL Woodworks and DIY, Robert J. Keller, Rebecca Cole of Beck C Designs, Brian Arsenault, the Seven Hills Maker, Lars Coleman of Colorado Multicraft, Dave Bauer of Dave Bauer Art, Nick Birchtold of Birchtold Design Build, Donald LeBlanc of Fun with Woodworking, Jeremy Spees, Mike of Pixels to Prototypes, Grant Alexander from the Clamp Podcast, Brad Harrison of Brad's Customs, and Billy Polton of Polton Projects. Thank you guys so much for supporting the podcast. It means the absolute world to me. I couldn't do this show without you. I wouldn't want to do this show without you. And I feel like every week, you guys are what motivates me to keep getting behind this mic and in front of this camera and doing the show week after week. If you can't support the show financially, that's fine. I completely understand. By all means, leave a review, share the show, get someone new turned on to it, because I can't grow the show on my own. I can try, and I will try. And I love talking about this, and I love turning people onto it and talking about the people that I've talked to. But without you guys, this show doesn't exist, and that's where we're at. Normally, we would have done a thing of the week before the financial supporters. I'm going to do it after the financial supporters because my thing of the week is actually from one of my financial supporters. And my thing of the week this week is the Maker Mallet from Nick Birchtold. And he actually released the video as I'm recording this. It's May 25th of 2023, and he actually released the video for the Maker Mallet. And it's fun watching this thing come together. It really, really is. And I'm honored to be on that thing. It's such a cool. I can't wait till Maker Camp so I get to actually see it in person and see my face on a mallet. I never thought I would say those words. That's the craziest thing I've ever said. But yeah, Nick Birchtold yet again makes my thing of the week. And of course, he's a financial supporter of the podcast. I don't know by what miracle I have earned the support of such a talented human being, but I appreciate his support and I love the stuff that he contributes to the maker community. As I like to say when I describe him to other people, he's not just boobs. And if you know who Nick is, you know exactly why that's funny. I guess that's going to do it for this week. Like I said, I am recording this. I am recording this on May 25th. So Memorial Day weekend is coming up. I'm probably going to be a little bit laying low, but I will be back every week until the wheels fall off this car. So I'm not going anywhere. Even if I got to do this show alone because I can't get responses from guests, no problem. I'm here for it. I hope you'll be here for it too. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And I will talk to you again next week. Bye for now.